And now we've got another public sector union, NAPO, and I'm very pleased to welcome Annoesjka Valent, speaking on behalf of NAPO as one of the national officers.
Comrades, first of all, I bring you solidarity on behalf of NAPO and apologies from Ian Lawrence, our General Secretary, who wished for it to be a successful conference today. Now, last year when I spoke, we were in negotiations over a 3-year pay claim. The offer that came back, though it fell far short of the claim we submitted with Unison and the GMB, was accepted by each of our respective membership. So NAPO, therefore, have not been part of the massive strike wave that we have seen, but our members have shown solidarity on picket lines with other striking workers and have been involved in the protests around the vicious Tory strike bill. Because our members, though not yet directly affected by this, they believe if this goes ahead, they might well be next, like many other workers in other sectors. Now, workloads are at an absolute breaking point. Many probation officers hold far above what are safe and acceptable caseloads. There is a workload measurement tool called WMT, and we did a workload survey recently. Just under 1,000 responded, and we're still working our way through it. But where members were reporting to be even on 180 to 190%, basically holding almost double the amount of cases they should hold. And this also counted for newly qualified officers. Now, some of the comments received when asking about how many cases, there were too many currently off work with stress and anxiety. I don't work cases any longer. I used to be on 144% on the WMT, and because a colleague was on 150%, I was told I had wiggle room. I've been working over my hours for 9 years now just to cover risk effectively. I'm working at 180% on the WMT, a caseload of 60 high-risk cases. I'm overworked, and on this caseload, I can't complete urgent tasks. The public aren't protected. Victims are at increased risk. There is not enough time to do it all. Now, when asked about what they found the most challenging about their role, I think one member probably summed it up most poignantly for all of our members. Knowing that you can't be the practitioner you want to be because there isn't time. Knowing you're likely to have missed things. Knowing that my children get the rough end of my parenting abilities because all my emotional capacity has been used at work. Repeatedly reading and exploring trauma and harm, repeatedly engaging with those who are wanting to cause themselves harm, seeing the impact of the job on colleagues, living with the absolute indifference of regional and national management. Now, when asked how morale was in the office, never seen it so low. People are dropping on their feet. Pretty awful. Nobody really wants to be there. I'm looking at cases of burnout all over the place. Low. Everyone looks stressed, stretched, worried. It's not a good place to work. Very, very low. I see people crying all the time. I saw one on Thursday last week and another colleague on Friday, and I'm in the office only 3 days a week. All colleagues are laughing, crying when it is so stressful. People in teams are keeping each other going. I can only speak for my office, but people are exhausted and do not feel appreciated. Officers work day and night to barely be able to afford paying rent and food. Look at staff suicide rates. Look at staff off sick with work-related stress. Staff morale is so low, people are literally killing themselves. So I'd say it's shockingly shit at best. Now, I've gone in some length giving you some of these examples because I think I always sort of kind of say it that people might not realize actually what it is that our members do on a daily basis in trying to keep the public safe. Now, NAPO gives very specific advice to members around workloads, which is to submit something called a foreseeability notice, where you're basically telling your line manager you're at breaking point and if no steps are taken to do something about the situation, the likelihood of suffering ill health could render the service liable for damages. Now, ironically, in one office, a member got nearly all their colleagues to sign these notices, only to be called into the office of the head of the unit and basically told to stop it, as she was bringing the morale down. So the increased workloads, the impacts on members' health, safety and well-being, staff leaving as a result, has led to an acute staffing and retention crisis, as another comment from the survey told us. We are repeatedly told that the office we are in is well staffed. However, every officer I've spoken to is struggling to manage. 5 officers have requested transfers and 4 officers left in the past month. Now, the service has a 29% vacancy, and in the year to the end of March 2023, 832 probation officers left the service, an increase of 15.2% compared to the year before. Now, in their own words, from the Prison and Probation Service Workforce Quarterly magazine, they quote themselves, "The number of leavers has increased considerably since June 2021, which is likely attributable to competition in the labour market." That's why we've been working for the past months towards the launch of a joint probation trade union campaign together with Unison and the GMB. It's called Operation Protect, protecting the public, protecting our members, protecting our profession. This will be launched on Monday, which is really symbolic because it will be 2 years since the service was taken back from the private companies and it was reunified. But this workloads campaign is very much linked to pay. Now, there may be a perception that staff in probation and in Kafkas are well paid. However, the lowest sort of kind of starting salary for the administrator type grades is around 19,000, and the starting salary for a qualified probation officer is around 33,000, which in the current economic crisis, I wouldn't exactly call exuberant, especially for the constant daily stress you're faced with if something goes wrong. With one of your cases, for example, you'll be likely the one that's going to be scapegoated rather than the fact that the service has been under incessant and damaging changes and under-resourcing and investment by this government for about a decade. The government literally has blood on their hands over this failed privatization experiment. Now, therefore, even though the offer on the probation side was accepted and we're 1 year into the 3-year pay deal, we are now reopening pay negotiations on that deal. And we are submitting a claim for 12% increase on all pay points effective from 1st of April 23 and an unconsolidated one-off payment of 2,500. Now, last year when we were negotiating the 3-year pay award, we were told there was no more money to improve the offer. However, just in the past couple of weeks, the 1,500 one-off payment announcements covering last year, 2022-2023, in the civil service shows the government it has the money to improve the pay of staff. Now, also on the family court side, we recently surveyed our members over the cost of living crisis, and some of the anecdotal responses were an equally stark read. I can barely afford to meet my outgoings or buy necessities for my child. It gets to the point where I consider leaving and going to a social work agency just so I can keep up with the cost of living. I'm needing to have another job on top of my working hours with Kafkas to make ends meet. Pay is not comparable to local authority pay and benefits. My bills have risen, so staying at Kafkas will be unavoidable for me. Staff are leaving to do the same. The workforce is becoming unstable in our team, adding pressure to us all. Most of the time, my wages are gone within the first week on all my bills, debts and food shop, etc. And I spend the rest of the month surviving week to week on my child benefit, which has to cover things the children need, weekly food top-ups, petrol and parking for work. It really is a struggle to get by and extremely stressful. I find it difficult to concentrate on my job at times as I'm so stressed, and I definitely feel this is impacting on my health. So in Kafkas, staff are leaving to work for social work agencies or move to local government where the pay now is higher. As in probation, in Kafkas, turnover rates have increased rapidly and are now at 14.6% compared with 9.9% pre-pandemic for social workers. So also in Kafkas, we have recently submitted our pay claim together with Unison for the 23-24 pay year of an increase in the value of all pay points of 3% above the RPI index of inflation as forecast on the 1st of April at 11.1%. So we will see what the negotiations, both in probation and in Kafkas, will bring. I'll finish now, but to say, despite not having joined other workers already in struggle last year, our members are fed up being trampled on. And the likelihood of joining in with other workers in a fight against this government, knowing full well that the proposed vicious attacks on the right to strike is to stop the fight for decent working conditions and pay. So this could very well be on the agenda again for us in the near future. Thank you.